Hey, what's going on? Matt Fradd here. I wanted to share a little bit more about how Google had banned my talk and the repercussions after that. The main reason I want to share this video again is because I had a lot of questions that came up and there were also some misunderstandings. The other reason is the audio was really terrible on the last one. So let me kind of reiterate what happened. I was invited by a group at Google to speak on the 11th of July. Now, there's been some misunderstanding with that. I'd never said that Google Incorporated called me up and invited me to come and speak. Rather, it was a group at Google, okay? They got permission. They then raised the money for my flight from Atlanta to San Francisco. They didn't give me a stipend, which I was fine with, but they did pay for the flight. When I arrived, I get a phone call saying that things are escalating pretty quickly there at Google. People had seen some of the things I had apparently said. They were pretty upset about it, and I was informed not in any way, shape, or form to address the transgenderism question or the same-sex attraction question. If these were to come up in the Q&A, I was to politely decline. Fair enough. I then settle into my lodgings and I get a phone call from somebody at Google who says the talk has been cancelled. Now, the reason I say the talk was banned and not merely cancelled is because that is what happened. To say the talk was cancelled could mean a number of things. It could mean the room was no longer available. It could mean that there was a meeting that these people had to attend and therefore couldn't attend my talk. But the reason it was cancelled is because I personally was banned from speaking. Now, they didn't ban me from coming and taking a tour, which I didn't choose to do, although I hear it's terrific, but they banned me from speaking. And you think, well, why? Well, they told me why. And then I spoke with a lot of people at an event we held outside of Google, and they told me why as well. But I was asked not to share that until the press office gave an official answer, an official reply as to why I wasn't to come, and I didn't want to get anyone in trouble, and so I waited for that. Now, another part, a bit of confusion, I shared some images of a talk that I gave in Silicon Valley to some Googlers and to some other folks who work there, like for WhatsApp and a whole other bunch of cool things. So somebody said, I thought your talk was canceled. Why am I seeing photos? Well, the reason is the group decided to hold the event off campus. So whereas we may have had as many as 120 people if we were to do it on campus, we did it off campus. Here's some photos of it now. And we spoke about, there's only about 20 people that showed up. But these people were terrific and they were from diverse backgrounds. Some were religious, some weren't religious. And my talk that I was asked to give was a non-religious presentation on the negative effects of pornography. After the talk, the man who hosted the event, he didn't work for Google, he got up and said, that was terrific. Did you experience any bigotry, like any hate speech whatsoever? And no one raised their hand, and I said, oh, thank goodness. So I was bugging them, can you please give me an official response? 2 days later, I get a response. Now that says something to me, okay? I would have thought that a company as big and as cool and as awesome as Google wouldn't be concerned with criticism or backlash they might get from people who follow little old Matt Fradd with like no followers, you know? But I think they are. I think there's a lot of pressure on Google right now. A lot of people are looking at them and they say, are you trying to silence religious and or conservative voices? Because it seems like you are. So as I say, it took them 2 days to get back to me. Here is the official response they got back to me with. Dear Matt, apologies for the cancellation of the talk with such short notice and for not giving a satisfying explanation before. I was asked to cancel the talk after some of my co-workers raised their concern on some past public comments you made, with the belief that they violate our internal community guidelines as they make them feel unwelcomed and disrespected. I'm personally saddened by the decision, appreciate your flexibility and willingness to still host the talk outside of Google's premises. For those still interested, and ask you to please reach out to, I'm not going to say the email address because I don't want people bombarding them, but it was an email address at Google if you have further questions. Thanks. Well, you see up here where it says past public comments, I'm really glad they did that, because if they hadn't have shared with me what those past public comments were, no doubt I would have hounded them. What is it that I've said that has made people feel unwelcomed and disrespectful? Well, when you click that link, it takes you through to a Twitter feed from over a year ago. Now that's interesting. I don't think someone sat there and started scrolling for a year to find something offensive. I think what they likely did is taught Matt Fradd and then something like transgenderism or homosexuality or anything that they could find on me to have an excuse to ban me. So let's just read through this, okay? I was posting about my podcast, Love People Use Things. I said, do y'all know I have a pro-love, anti-porn podcast? It's called Love People Use Things. This Tim W. fellow you can see here responds a little sarcastically. He says, unless those people are gay, right? And I said, whoa there, dude. Like, we don't think people with same-sex attraction should be watching porn either. In other words, this is not about same-sex versus opposite-sex attraction. Whether you identify as gay or straight or whatever, like, we think that your life would be healthier without porn. That's the point I'm trying to make. And then he says, whoa there. So now we're in a contest of whoa there's, one each it looks like. He says, your pro-love message doesn't extend to loving same-sex relationships. Now, he then says, this is where you give the tired canard, hate the sin, love the sinner, or I have gay friends. Well, I'm not sure why that has to be a tired canard. I think that sin is detrimental to our lives. And since I love you and I love people, I don't want sin destroying them. Like, I think pornography, for example, is a sin. So if you're somebody who consumes pornography, yeah, I hate the sin of pornography. And because I love you, I want you to be free of it, all right? And do I have gay friends? I have friends who have same-sex attraction, and I'm not sure why it has to be a tired canard. It's like you're damned if you do or you're damned if you don't. Like, if you were to say, well, I don't hang out with people with same-sex attraction, he would yell at me. And if I say I do, he says that's just a move that you're making to try and make your argument. I then say something very clear, because I hate when people beat around the bush on this thing. I say, right, I think homosexual acts are disordered. Disagree with me on that if you like. It doesn't mean we can't agree that a life without porn is a better life. That is the most direct thing I said in this comment thread, and this is clearly the thing that offended people and that led them to feel unsafe. But I'm not sure why it had to do that. I wasn't attacking anybody, I wasn't using inflammatory language, I wasn't putting down anybody. I was simply sharing my opinion and the opinion of many people who live in the United States of America. Now, lest you think that I am unable to say homosexual acts are disordered while loving those with same-sex attraction, this is clearly false. I mean, the Catholic Church and Christians in general think lots of things are disordered, right? We think masturbation is disordered. We think that contraception is disordered. Why do we say that? Because the sexual act is ordered towards an end. Just like eating is ordered towards the end of nutrition. If I eat and then make myself vomit, this is disordered. Okay? Well, if I masturbate, I'm thwarting the end of an openness to life. If I look at porn, I'm thwarting both the unitive aspect and an openness to life. And of course, if I'm engaged in homosexual acts, then I'm thwarting an openness to life. So this is a very consistent view. It's not hateful, it's consistent. Now, you can disagree with the premises if you want, but to say that because I disagree with homosexual acts and think them disordered, I therefore hate homosexuals, you would have to therefore say, well, because you disagree with contraception, you hate people who contracept, or because you disagree with masturbation, you hate people who masturbate. None of this is true at all. Okay, so then he writes, speaking of inflammatory language, Tim says, so damn gay people to no sexual relationships and no sexual outlet. Got you. You are despicable. Catholics are poison to the LGBT community. First of all, just because I hold a particular view on sexual acts, and just because the Catholic Church does, doesn't mean that anybody is forcing you to listen, okay? I'm not sure why you must have me agree with you. Why can't it be that I think that homosexual acts are disordered and you do what you want? It's not like I'm forcing you. I'm not knocking on your door to check whether or not you're, engaging in homosexual acts or using contraception. You can clearly do what you want and I can still hold a particular point of view. Why is this so threatening to you? Why can't you be tolerant of my opinion? We should remember that tolerance implies disagreement. It doesn't imply agreement. So if you tolerate with the things you agree with, this isn't tolerance, this is agreement. I tolerate your position, why can't you tolerate mine? Now, notice how inflammatory this language is. I imagine if Tim W. was invited by a group to speak at Google, does anybody seriously think he would be banned from speaking at Google because he called Catholics poison? Right? That he called me despicable. I don't think so. I think he'd be just fine. I then say, I'm sorry you can't be more tolerant, Tim. And then I recommend him to the work of somebody with same-sex attraction who's been writing about this. This is apparently the worst thing they found that I said. Do you understand? Like, if they could find something worse, they probably would have posted it. The fact that this is the thing they throw up in order to ban me, I think speaks volumes. Okay, so here is my response to Google. You can see it on your screen there. Thank you for your reply. And then here's the question. Is it Google's official position that my previous comments on Twitter, which were linked in the previous email, violate Google's internal community guidelines? If so, which particular comment in the thread violated those guidelines? If it was the comment, I think homosexual acts are disordered, then does that mean Google's community guidelines would prohibit inviting anyone to speak on Google's campus who publicly holds the view that homosexual acts are disordered? I'm hoping that Google's press office can clarify this matter, especially since, according to a May 2019 Gallup poll, 35% of Americans believe gay and lesbian relations are morally wrong. If any of these 100 million Americans made that position publicly known, would they be in violation of Google's internal community guidelines? Thank you, Matt. Fair question, isn't it? Pretty interesting, hey? Like, I'm imagining they want to say yes, but they're not going to. And I haven't got anything back from them. And I was told if I write to them, they will get right back to me. It's now been several days, or 3 days. I've got nothing back from them. And it's not like Google's sleeping and they're like, oh, sorry, we were away. I mean, they had people working around the clock. So that's where things stand right now. I'd love to get your take. I think that this is worth sharing, not because I think it's going to do any serious, it's going to make any serious change in Google by me sharing this little video, but I do think if enough people stand up and say, look, my voice was silenced. And again, the point isn't that Google can decide to not have me speak at their campus. They're of course free to do that, and I'm not angry about this. I'm really not. I think Google's doing great work, and I think that there's probably a lot of people at Google, I'm sure of it, who are really good people, and they're excited to make the world a better place through the work that they're doing. I really believe it, and I met a bunch of people who were there. But still, it is interesting that conservative voices which disagree with secular dogma, if you want, get silenced, while no other do. So feel free to leave a comment below, and I do want to ask you to click subscribe and then click that bell notification, because apparently voices like mine will not be heard on Google's platform. And maybe you think that's a little over the top, a little hyperbolic. Maybe I'm just trying to get more subscribers. Well, yes, I am. Like, yeah, that is exactly what I'm doing. I'm trying to get more subscribers. But I also do think that it's the case that conservative voices are beginning to be cracked down upon. And so click subscribe, click that bell. Thank you so much. We just hit 17,000 subscribers today, and I was like super jazzed about that. Honestly, I think the work that I'm doing with trying to reach people with the gospel, which is what I'm doing, it's a cliche, but I don't care. It's true. If I can reach one person, if I can help lead them to Jesus Christ, I'd be happy. Now, so I'm a Christian. There you go. I outed myself. I'm a raging Catholic, and I agree with everything the Catholic Church teaches. Are you going to be tolerant of that or no? You don't have to be, but that's where I stand. But remember, the talk I was asked to give at Google was a non-religious talk, which I was perfectly willing to give, and yet that was not allowed. Thanks so much. God bless.